What's up, everyone? Welcome to Unmasked, where things are discovered, uncovered, brought to the light, and made known. I'm your host, Lamar Barrett, coming live to you from PG County, Maryland. If you're interested in finding out about the untold stories behind being a college coach, this is the show for you. Being a former assistant men's college basketball coach for 16 years, there are so many untold stories behind the scenes in the life of a college basketball coach. Now, let's unmask them. Today's guest is a longtime assistant coach with a bright basketball mind, an outstanding work ethic, an excellent talent evaluator, a teacher, a great developer of talent, and he's a Lackawanna, New York native, Kevin Kuwik. All right. So before I even bring Kevin on, I've been knowing Kevin, it's probably close to 20 years now. And it's, I think we started working camp together back at Eastern Invitational then. So that's how long we go way back. But then Kevin, graduated from Notre Dame, and he's a guy, mechanical engineer, was a student manager for John McLeod. That's the name from the past. A student manager with John McLeod at Notre Dame, and finished up with a like I said, mechanical engineering degree, and then from there he was still military, 2 years active duty after he had graduated, before even getting into college coaching. So. And I kind of joked with Kev before we even came on live, like mechanical engineer, coaching. I don't see it. Hey, sometimes you make the choices that's best for you. I always say this, Kevin, I've been saying it recently. It's your vision, God's plan. You can't control that, and you knew what your love was. So, and at the same time, he goes from there and he coaches at Christian Brothers Academy, 1998 to 2000. From there, he goes to St. Michael's College up in Vermont, Burlington, Vermont, as an assistant coach. And then he goes to Ohio University with Coach O'Shea for 7 years at Ohio University. Actually, during that time, he took an 18-month leave in 04-05 to serve in the 113th Engineer Battalion of the Indiana National Guard in support of Operational Iraqi Freedom. So, then he actually, during that time, used some of his leave to end up coming back, coaching in the Ohio Valley Conference Tournament, which they ended up winning, and then coaches in the NCAA tournament. So he had a chance to, still serve his country and coach at the same time while he was on leave. So that's an outstanding. That had to be an awesome moment for you. And then from after he finished at Ohio, he goes over to Butler University, worked with Brad Stevens for years, the director of basketball ops. And from there, he goes to Ohio State University, the Ohio State. I got to make sure I get it right. I got some friends up here that will make sure I say the Ohio State. I worked with Thad Matta for 2 years as the video coordinator, and from there he goes with Archie Miller, who was an assistant on that staff before going over to Dayton, I believe, from 2011 to 2017. 6 years at Dayton University as an assistant coach. And then from there, where he is presently now, get ready to go into year 5 with Bob McKillop, Coach McKillop, at Davidson College, where year 1, he was the director of basketball ops. And then for the last 3 years, he's going to go in year 4 now, he's an assistant coach there. And so, I want to say, welcome to the show to a good friend I've been knowing, like I said, close to 20 years. It's always been, we make sure, talking to each other, reach out. See each other on the road. We always speak. I just want to welcome to the show a friend I call Kevin Kuwik. How you doing, Kevin?
Hey, Lamar, doing great. Thanks for having me. Obviously you've been doing this for a while. You've had, I think, over 100 guests. You're clearly scraping the bottom of the barrel now that you're, reaching out for me here. Not many guys left to talk to, I guess. But, I think I appreciate your intro and obviously our relationship. It's a great example of what makes this coaching profession, really cool. I mean, we've known each other for a long time. Our paths cross in a lot of different ways. Sometimes maybe you're out of touch a little bit, but then, you run into someone before a game and it's just like it was yesterday. So, really appreciate your friendship. Really appreciate you having me on.
You're welcome, man. You're definitely not I'm not scraping the barrel. You're in the top 10% because there's still 1,000 coaches out there, assistants. So you're in the top 10%. Just know that. But let's go ahead and get unmasked what you came here for, Kev. And we can go back to when you started, whether it was, back in Memphis or Berlin Romano, when you first jumped into Ohio, how you want to answer this first question? I love to answer this question because I want the viewers, I want them to get educated on how this business is really not what they think it is. So I always say, there's no handbook, to being a college coach. Tell me about your first day, maybe the first week, first month, after things are done with human resources and orientation, especially when no one gives you direction. It don't even matter if you have been in the business or you're starting somewhere else. You always just thrown in the fire in this profession. No one gives you, hey, here's how you do things. This is when you take lunch. This is when, none of that happens. Talk about your experience.
Well, I think I'm going to go back to Christian Brothers University, Division II, Memphis, Tennessee, 1998. 24 years old, got that mechanical engineering degree, Army experience. My dad's like, what are you doing? You're nuts. When you show up and the beauty of coaching at D2 or D3 or junior college, there's not 10 guys running around in suits there. It was my boss and me, and we had one volunteer guy, and that was it. So, on one hand, it was awesome. Got to do player development, got to do conditioning, got to do run lifting programs, got to scout, got to recruit, but also did laundry, mopped the floor. And again, your boss, you got to kind of figure it out. Your boss can't look over your shoulder every second. He's kind of counting on you from the time that you were around the Notre Dame program and, just your knowledge of people to kind of figure things out and ask questions when you need to. And, my favorite story, Lamar, at Christian Brothers, it was obviously in Memphis. It's hot as heck down there. And, you feel like you change your shirts like 3 times in one day. I know why in the South they move a lot slower. If you move too fast, you're going to sweat. But we didn't have air conditioning in our gym, and we'd open these windows up like in May, and it'd be like an oven in there. And once you open those windows up for the summer, the guys would come in to play pickup, and then the pigeons would fly in, and they'd be pooping all over the floor, and you'd have to mop that stuff up. And I'm thinking like, oh, this is the real big time college experience here, but the best part of it was we get to October and we're having those early morning workouts and, you're seeing your breath in there. So it's like, all right, it's time to close the windows. Well, we had these little poles that you would stand up on ladders and unlatch those things and close them. We still had the pigeons flying around in the gym. So you'd close all the windows except the corner 2, get them all sealed up. And then we take all the coaches, we would take the bin of volleyballs and we would start throwing them at the other birds to try to flush them out that back corner. Once we got the last one out that window, we'd run up and we close those windows and all right, we'll see you next May. So, not exactly what you envision, coaching profession, but that's a good story for you.
That's a great one. That is a great one. Wow. Would imagine that, trying to get pigeons out the building. Recruiting. We all know that's the lifeline of college athletics. You got to get good players. You got to get good people. And in your case now, where you are, and it doesn't matter. I think good student. You got to get a good student. And I think a lot of times in this profession, good student doesn't always mean they have to be an all A's. They have to be all B's. You want someone who cares about education, who cares about going to class, doing the right things, making sure that they got a chance to graduate, making sure they graduate. So talk about your best or worst recruiting story you may have had over the years. I mean, you've been in it, I look at it now, you're talking about, it's it's 23 years now. You're going to go on 24 years. So what's your best or worst recruiting stories you might have had over the years?
Well, a lot of example, good and not so good, kids that you get, kids that you don't get. I think I'm going to go back to what you said about the student piece and about, your goal is just to make these kids better. It's not to judge them about where they're starting here, they're starting here, they're starting here. It's like, hey, can I get you from here to here? Can I get you from here to here? That's what, obviously, hopefully you love basketball and then you love making kids better and preparing them for the adult world. And the story I always love to tell is we recruited a kid at Ohio out of Cardinal Gibbons in Baltimore, Leon Williams. Awesome kid, had to take 2 buses across the county to get to Cardinal Gibbons. They wore shirt and tie every day. He basically had, for 4 years, he had 2 pairs of pants, 2 shirts, and 2 ties. And, it was tough by the time senior year rolled around, those things weren't in great shape, but you know what? that kid appreciated it. But he was a borderline guy to qualify for the NCAA. He was about 6'8", 240. We thought he was a great kid, great family, great player, but the academic piece was going to be challenging. And basically when our season ended in March, basically once a week, I would go out there and he would just come over to my hotel and he would do his homework, and, he qualified. He ended up being a 4-year starter, freshman of the year, all conference player. He's still playing overseas. He's had a great career, got a chance to go to his wedding. Remember when his whole family came from Baltimore, first kid from his family to graduate from college. So, it goes back to the whole thing. They don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And, for me being at the time, being a, 28, 29-year-old assistant and putting all that effort into making sure that he graduated, nothing to do with basketball, just getting to college. Something that you really remember fondly.
Awesome. I mean, that's within itself. And you said it best. Like it is about, helping guys reach, continue to grow. Those are things are huge. I don't think people understand that. That's a great educational piece. So these young coaches who plan on getting in the profession, like that's something big that they should take from you making that statement. Sacrifice, key word in this business. We know like that is one of the biggest keys in this business, biggest words. What did you have to sacrifice? You've already sacrificed. I mean, you talked about it being a 10-year, been in the military for 10 years, like that's sacrificing for your country. But now, what did you have to sacrifice to achieve your current level of success? Because I don't think a lot of times people understand how much time you're away, how much time from your family and, I mean, not your friends. Like you miss out on a lot of things. Talk about that. What did you have to sacrifice?
I think obviously a lot of times young coaches reach out or aspiring coaches and, they see the games on TV and the recruiting events and the Twitter and the charter flights and the gear. And, that's great, but obviously it's a lot more than that. And I think it's a real personal challenge. I think there's a financial piece of that. My Notre Dame engineering degree in my first 2 years, I made $6,000 a year. My dad thought I was nuts, and, so there's definitely, there's that piece of it. And then, personal life, just family, like I've got a 4-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old daughter, but honestly, this profession is so consuming that for a long time, when you're recruiting and you're working with the guys and you're just throwing yourself in the trenches, and it's real easy to get caught up in that. And you just kind of put your personal life on hold, and let alone having a family, or my other peers that have families at a young age and the challenges that puts on. So right now I have a wife, I have 2 beautiful girls, 4 and 2. And, every time I go out recruiting, my wife's a lawyer. She's got a full-time job. Every time I go recruiting, I mean, she is majorly taken one for the team, as far as getting the kids dressed, fed, driven to school with, honestly, zero help from me at that point. So, you got to be appreciative of that. It's a real challenge. You have to, be willing to listen and hopefully be able to meet them halfway as much as you can. But honestly, she gives me way more than I can give her. So, that kind of speaks to that sacrifice piece as well.
I'm glad you said that, because that's the one thing you have to have someone that's able to work with you, in that, because, and both of you, like you said, both of you got careers is, unbelievable. That assumes a lot of time. So, for you, kudos to you guys for, having that work and they understand each other. And like one thing about it, you were involved in it already, so she knew what it was about. And so that's a good thing, when you have a person like that. Like I said, my wife, 17 years, I can remember, 5 moves, and every time she let me know about but didn't make a decision without her. So I can understand where you're coming from. They are very important to being successful, not just you being on the court, off the court, but that is a huge piece for you. Like we always say in this business, what, happy wife, happy life. You know how that is, Cam. Scout reports, another huge thing in the profession. And I think a lot of people don't understand how much time goes into scouting reports. Some people might think, like you can coach high school basketball and think, or you coaching, certain levels, but you spend a lot of time, 7, 8 game, 9, 10, watching game film, putting the report together, sitting with coach, talking about what you think we should do. And, so, and then you got to make sure you're able to, get that over to the kids, be able to tell them so they can understand it. Not give them too much information, but give them enough so they can be successful, because you don't want to give them overload. Like, they got so much other things going on. We get caught up sometime in trying to be, showing that we're good and we know everything, but we've studied 7, 8, 9 games. They haven't done that much. So, and then you got coach who, like, you're telling him what you think, and hey, coach, kid is 3 for his last 35 from 3. Just so happens that he's struggling shooting. It's a word you use. You get to the game, he makes his first 2. Coach turning, looking at you like, yo, you said he couldn't shoot. Coach, I didn't say he couldn't shoot. I said he was struggling. So talk about the scouting report, maybe your best or worst, or just like scouting report in general and how it is.
Oh, I think a lot of interesting elements, Lamar. First of all, I think, it's the first thing is you got to really learn what makes that other team tick. What's their heartbeat? And it's not about just like watching 4 or 5 games and saying, oh, they ran this play and they ran this play and they ran this play. It's the why. Like, why did this game go this way? The team they're playing against, man-to-man, zone, switching, a bigger team, a more athletic team, a less athletic team, whatever that is, lots of ball screens, lots of motion, whatever. You got to totally know that other team first. Number one. All right, that's great. You can come up with that, but then you got to translate that to your team and playing against your team and what your strengths and weaknesses are. So I think that's the second piece of it. I think the third piece of it is, to your point, which I 100% agree. We want these kids to play freely and instinctively. So if they can't be out there going, oh, if they do this, then they're going to do this, or are they going to do this? No, it's got to be something simple where you boil it down into 2, 3, 4 big things that they can understand, and that they can freely and instinctively play with those big picture ideas in their mind. And then I think the last thing that I personally try to take a lot of pride in is all the little special situational stuff. The last thing I try to do before every game I scout is watch their last 4 minutes of their close games. And can I have, hey, if they're pressing, this is what they do. If we're pressing them, this is how they try to break it. If they coming out of a timeout, here's something they might like to do. Whatever that is, can I have a couple of those nuggets where, we're in that timeout with 45 seconds left and this is the situation, and my boss can give me the board and say, hey, show them what they're going to do.
That's some great stuff right there. I like that. Like the last 4 minutes. I think that's important. And those some great points. Right there. And I think, someone is listening to this, they're gonna take that same approach you have, like within those last 4 minutes. And like you said, we always stealing for each other in this business anyway, so it doesn't matter. One thing I like, Kev, and looking at your resume, and this will probably be the first time I ask this question. Talk about how important, and I think, the reason why, and one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, I know you're a selfless person. I look at you and say, Kev is going to be a head coach one day. He, like you say, okay, how come he hasn't been? But I think you're going to be a head coach. Tell me how all the roles you played in college basketball, even being at Division II level, to being video coordinator, director of basketball operations, and assistant coach, how valuable has that information, all the things you've done in the job, been helpful for you?
Well, John Rose was a guy I worked with for a long time at Ohio U. He was at Duquesne. Now he's down at IMG, one of my best friends in the business. And I was, 25, 26, my first D1 job with him. And, he kind of put his arm around my shoulder and said, hey, Kev, my advice to you is don't skip steps. And to the contrary, I probably banged into the same steps over and over. But that being said, maybe in my heart, I was ready to be a head coach 5 years ago. It's a lot of timing and opportunity, but if I got the job, then I wouldn't have had these 5 years with Bob McKillop, and when I do get my chance, I'm going to be better for that. So whatever your job is, obviously make the most out of it. There's lessons to be learned in every single one of those stops that when you do get your chance is going to set you up for success, as long as you're paying attention. Sometimes we get like way out in front of our skis and, oh, I got to get this and I want to get here and I want to do that. And you mess up what you got, or you miss a lesson that you should have learned. So, I don't say I have all the answers, but I do feel I've had some amazing experiences working for some great guys. And yeah, I can't be Bob McKillop or Brad Stevens or Thad Matta. I got to be Kevin Kuwik, and I got to figure out from all those people what fits me and what I'm comfortable teaching and what I believe in. And then you run with it when you get that opportunity.
So true, man. And shout out John Rose. That's a great guy right there. That's a name you brought up. Yeah, he's always been the best, man. So I understand, like you said, like him just dropping that little nugget to you, that was huge. Kevin, like I said, I've been knowing you for a long time, and a lot of people in this business, they respect your work. You got a great reputation. But do you find that there are things about you that people might misunderstand? What are they?
Oh, geez. I don't know about that. Kind of to ask them, but I guess the one thing I would say to young, coaches, there's kind of a mentality, and probably at some points in my career, I was guilty of it, where you're just like, I'm just going to put my head down and work my butt off, and you're going to get where you want to get. And that's good in some ways, but you also got to be known. And the relationships mean a lot, whether it's in recruiting or your peers, or maybe guys you'll be working for someday, administrators that you work with. So, I think that's one thing I've kind of had a hard time balancing at times. So, you've been in the trenches, Lamar. You go down to Orlando, or you go to Eastern Invitational, or you go Adidas, and there's 6 courts lined up there, and you see all your boys down there sitting courtside, and it's like, all right, do I go sit up top and do I watch 2 games and really try to lock in and get all the details? But then my peers might be looking at me like, that guy's a little funny. Like, how about talking to some people? Or am I the guy down in the baseline yucking it up, having no idea what's happening? All I'm doing is listening to all the other guys tell me who's good. So, neither one of those is right. I've probably been the guy like kind of up in the rafters at times. You got to do a little bit of both. And, you got to show people that you're a real person. I think that's, ultimately that's what it comes down to.
It's so true. And like you said that, it's interesting because there are people, one thing I noticed, Kevin, over the years is guys kind of almost cliquish, and you don't even realize it. And like, you think about it, and I started thinking about it over the last couple of years. You would walk in and guys are looking at your shirt to see who you are, like what school you're from. And that determines whether they speak to you or not speak to you, and that's just kind of strange how it still was a small profession, but it was still cliquish. And that's almost with anything, but you would think a little different in that setting. It's just interesting. But I like what you said, like with the, some guys sit up top and they get work done. Some guys down in the top. I mean, that do happen. And some guys are just that gifted where they can watch games for 5 minutes and then listen to everyone else tell them how good this guy is. And sometimes they miss out, but I really like what you said there. We're educators in this business. So, and that's probably one that, you probably jumped into college athletics, being a coach, is because you're probably naturally an educator. So like, as much as you were in mechanical engineering, it was all about teaching young men. Like, you had been around basketball, being at Notre Dame, but still was something about that that's like, no, at the end of the day, you're an educator, right? And so what do you try to teach or educate to your players besides basketball? Because it is, like we're going to have them 4 or 5 years, but they got a long time to live after this.
Well, a couple of things there. First of all, you talk about the educator piece. So my uncle, who I really look up to, was a, PE teacher and a high school football coach back outside in Lackawanna, outside of Buffalo. He won a couple state championships. He was the guy when I was 10, 11, 12 that I was like, I love the competition. I looked up to him. That's probably a big reason why I'm coaching. My whole family, my dad was a, junior high math teacher. My mom was a first grade teacher. My brother's a K-5 principal. So we're in there as far as that education piece. I would also, Lamar, go to my Army experience though, of, there's a leadership piece to that too. Yes, we coach, yes, we teach, but we lead, we inspire, we challenge, we support, and I think that's big. So, I think the biggest thing that you can get out of this college experience and the beauty of athletics and basketball is the team piece. So, I thought back to when I started in the Army, and they teach whether you become a general or you're a, Joe Snuffy private, every one of you starts out learning basic soldier skills, and you learn how to read a map. You learn how to do first aid. Well, the thing I was thinking about, they call them individual movement techniques. All right. And that's how you move in the battlefield. So Lamar, we got to take that hill. All right. So there's three things. They got a low crawl and a high crawl. And the low crawl is like, there's no cover. There's nothing stopping a bullet. There's no concealment. There's nothing hiding me. So I have to literally press myself to the ground to get up that hill. And I'm on my chin and I'm just like inching up that hill, dragging my rifle with me. And that's going to take a long time to take that hill, brother. And then there's the high crawl where maybe if I'm lucky, there's some bushes and there's, some stuff kind of disguising me, but I just can't get up and just walk up there. So I can get up on my elbows and I can put my rifle, across my elbows and I can kind of shinny, but I'm still not going very fast and I'm not very far off the ground. So, but the beauty of it is they have a thing called a 3 to 5 second buddy rush. And it takes me and my teammate, my battle buddy, and maybe me and you were about 5-10 feet apart. And it starts out, you're looking at the bad guys at the top of the hill and you lay down suppressive fire. You start shooting. Hopefully they put their heads down. And when you do that, I get up and I get as low as I can. I run as fast as I can for like 3 to 5 seconds. And I jump down, hopefully behind a rock or something. And I roll like 2 feet to the left. So when I get up the next time, they don't know where I went down. And then I do the same thing for you. And little by little, we leapfrog up that hill, and that's how we get to the top of that hill. And to me, that's the beauty of sports is, the best things in life, the most challenging things, the hardest things to get, you don't do them by yourself. You do them with your teammate. You do them with your battle buddy. And for the teams that do it at the highest level, that win championships, that's what it's all about. So I'm hoping every one of the guys that I touch, they get that, if nothing else, they get that being part of a team. It's bigger than just you. We always say it's not the name on the back of the jersey. It's the name on the front. It's so true.
That's deep stuff right there. I like that. I've never heard it like that. I mean, and that is deep. I'm sitting here as you're saying that, like, oh, I'm taking some of these notes down. Just listen to that, like that, building that team. Like, that's some really good stuff, man. Look, you've worked with some tremendous coaches. I mean, I'm just O'Shea, Thad Mata, Brad Stevens, and Miller, Archie. You worked with Bob McKillop. And not even talk about some assistants you worked with as well, but now, if you had a chance to sit down and like you've already sat down and talked to these guys, but if you had a chance to sit down 3 or 4 hours, pick the brain of 3 or 4 guys, and it's gonna be hard. 3 or 4 guys is very hard, and it could be basketball, it could be football, it could be anything. If you want to sit down and what made you tick, what made you successful, get to the point that you are. Who would those guys be that you would want to sit down with? It could be an AD as well. It could be anyone, but like 2 or 3 or 4 guys you like, I would love to sit down 3 or 4 hours, pick their brain and figure out what makes them tick.
Well, I think, the 2 guys that really come to mind are probably Bill Belichick and Phil Jackson. And, again, are they they're pretty darn good, obviously. Are they the best? But I think the 2 things I would ask them to really zero in on is obviously one, dealing with the highest level, most elite guys, the Michael Jordans, the Tom Brady, and how do you do that, to command their respect, to give them the respect they deserve and the freedom and the space. And then how do you balance that off with coaching the rest of your guys? And then even more importantly, in this day and age, Lamar, how do you sustain that? Because it's one thing to win one championship, but in this day and age, you win one, everyone is on social media telling you how good you are. And it sets you up for the fall going for number 2, and those guys just kept churning them out. So, to me, those as a coach and as a leader, those are 2 really big challenges. And those guys, I think they would have some, really good perspectives on dealing with those 2 things.
Those are 2 great guys. And I love what you keep saying. Leadership is huge. You can tell that's that, being in the military, like it's driven. I love that. Like and I think that's a big part of you, just leadership. And I love what I'm hearing there. What is the strangest, probably, I'm gonna say weirdest thing that from a player that you seen them do, like outside the basketball court, where you were just like, wow, I cannot believe this student athlete did this? Like, what's the strangest thing a player's done outside of
goodness gracious. I don't know about strange. I mean, I hate to say it. It's the bumps with the law, they're given, we always say to the guys, to whom much is given, much is expected, and we're pouring ourselves into these young men to give them a chance, no matter what they came from, to make themselves better, to pick up their family, to pick themselves up, and, you can't want it more than they do, but God, they do some things where you're like, golly, it really makes you scratch your head. I could think of one guy I coached that got in one situation that was kind of a gray situation, but not a good situation to be in. And it was a learning experience, and it turned out okay, but really went to the mat for him. And it was, there was a lot of stuff to do after that to kind of get him back to where he needed to be. And we got through all that. And like a month later, did something totally immature and like, it just kissed it all away, and it's so, it's disappointing. But they're kids, and, sometimes it takes more than even two chances, and you just got to try to believe in them and love them. And it might not click right then, but hopefully someday they look back at everything you did for them and they can appreciate it. Maybe helps them be a better parent.
Yeah, you're so true with that. Like, that's what we got to understand. They're kids. We forget that we were once 18, 19, 20 years old. You forget that because you don't, but then it's like, okay, how could you not figure this out? But like, hey, we were young. We were young as well. So I can understand it. What's the biggest accomplishment you have experienced since you've been become a college coach?
Well, I mean, I think, the going to the Elite Eight with Dayton was probably pretty special, but it's, you got to celebrate where you're at, and, you're only as good as your last one. So I feel the first year I came to Davidson, to come here and for them to kind of, this is a really tight knit family, not a lot of transfers here. Coach has recruited fathers and brothers, and, there's a lot of tradition. The whole staff is mainly all former Davidson guys. His son, Matt, Will Regal, Jack Gibbs, Brian Sullivan, Will Tony. So it's a real special community. So it's kind of intimidating coming in as an outsider, but, to come here, and I was at Dayton fighting against these guys for their first couple of years in the A-10, and to come here my first year and for them to kind of welcome me with open arms and make me feel part of the team. And, we were in a situation, I think we were 5-7 to start the year. We had a pretty good run in the A-10, but, at best we were going to the NIT if we didn't win the A-10 tournament. And we hit it right. We beat St. Louis, we beat St. Bonaventure, we beat Rhode Island, went to the tournament with that group. And that was a really, really special run to be a part of it with these guys.
Awesome, man. This is kind of entertaining right here. What movie or TV show title best describes your week?
Oh, geez. Well, I'm going to say Paw Patrol. That's, you got a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and, you had hinted to me like, I might be asking about your favorite movie. And I'm just like, I don't watch movies anymore. Like, I watch whatever my little girls are watching. So, I know Paw Patrol and PJ Masks and Tots and, all this kind of Mickey's Clubhouse. Goodness gracious. But, I guess I would say to sum up my week or kind of describe my week in terms of a movie, like, my wife hates me for this, but like, I'm not looking for some like philosophical, like figure out the meaning of life type of movie where we're going to have a 3-hour discussion after it and come to no conclusions. For me, my life is 100 miles an hour. You're juggling 9 million things. You're chasing these guys around half the time, begging, pleading, twisting their arms. So for me, a good movie is a Happy Gilmore or Coming to America, where like, it is totally stupid. I laugh my butt off. Have to think zero energy about like thinking about what it means. I'm just entertained and I laugh, and it's silly and it's stupid. Drives my wife crazy, but that sums up what my week is like.
Love it. I love it. What's your favorite word or phrase you like to use? Like what comes out? You could be in practice, it could be game. Like what's your favorite word or phrase?
Let's go. Of all the coaches, and you learn something, Brad Stevens kind of gives you something, and Archie Miller gives you something, and obviously Coach McKillop gives you a ton. But I think back to working for Thad Matta, and his thing was kind of like, let's rev this up. He's the most probably motivational guy that I've been around, just an energy guy, like, let's get this thing going. And, that's how I want to be out there. I want to help these, we all know there's these dog days where you've gone 3 or 4 days in a row and you're dragging and, oh God, coach got me doing the same drill again. And he's on my butt about this and that. And, I want to be the guy just like picking these guys up and let's keep this going. We're lucky to be out here. Let's have the time of our life today, so let's go. Let's do this.
Love it. Simple, but it's still powerful enough. You know what I'm saying? So I love it. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given?
I don't know if I'd say advice, but again, recency bias, but just being with Coach McKillop, all the lessons he teaches these guys. And the two things I'm thinking about, one is it's kind of what our offense is built about, but it's what life is built about. It's sacrifice equals reward. That if I set that great screen and don't worry about myself, half the time I'm going to be the one that ends up getting open after I set that screen, which I think is a great lesson for guys. And then the second thing, which I think I'll go to the grave with, is sloppiness is a disease, and I think there's a value to the little things, to the details, to the little people, and when you can be locked in, and I go back to my time in the Army again, Lamar, where, I'm 19, 20 years old. I'm at Fort Bragg. That drill sergeant is up my butt that my bed isn't made this way and my boots aren't shined right. And I'm a student at Notre Dame, and I'm just playing Army for a couple of weeks in the summer. And it's like, what does that have to do with anything? But you know what? If you can be locked in on those little things when nothing is on the line at Fort Bragg in the summer, when you're in college, when you get to Mosul, Iraq, or in basketball, when you're playing VCU with 30 seconds left and it's a 1-point game, that's when those details and that focus on the little things is going to bail you out, So I think that's a great life lesson that applies to whatever we do.
I think I might have been at that game when y'all. I might have been at that one. Trust. I think I was. I remember that. What does success mean to you? Because people get equated with wins and losses and all that, but what does success mean to you?
Well, easier, it's so easy in this life to get into kind of comparing and, get kind of caught up in the titles and all the black and white stuff and the stuff that goes in your resume. But, hopefully, again, at the end of the day, success is doing something you love with the people you love and making a difference for them and making things better for them. And, if you do all that stuff, hopefully that's coming back to you and it's going to work out for you. I have this funny saying, I always say, when I die, I want to have bought more beers for other people than they bought for me, and it's stupid, but I just think if you're not worried about what you're getting, if you worry about what you're given, it's going to come back around for you at some point, as long as you're not keeping score and keeping track.
And that's what that leads into when I said you're a selfless person. And, it's interesting that you said that, because my next question was saying you're not a self-promoter. You've never been, like I used the word selfless, but if you had to choose 3 adjectives to describe yourself, which would you choose?
I would say, number 1, toughness. Whatever life throws at you, you can't change that happening. It's what you do moving forward. I think that's something that's really important to me. I think the other-centered, caring piece, that it's about the others, it's not about yourself. And then the last piece would be the humble piece. Kind of the same thing with that, as far as it's hard. We're all in it. We're competing. We're trying to be the best we can be. I think that's the beauty of this profession. There's not everyone knows when you're winning or you're losing, so there's, hopefully you're winning more than you're losing. But if you are fortunate enough to have that success and to keep climbing the mountain and be at a, great spot and maybe be a head coach someday, don't forget where you came from, and don't be putting yourself above other people. I think that's hard, but it's something that I, hopefully like to think I got from my parents and that I try to embody.
Wow. Great 3 answers for you. And I'm gonna ask you this, because people have different places. Where is your happy place? Some people like to read books. Some people, like me, I used to go to the movie theater, sit in the movie theater by myself, or I would go to, go get a massage for 2 hours, and I know I'm on the table and I can relax. What's your happy place?
My happy place is exploring. So obviously we're married, we have kids now, but when it was my wife and I traveling to a new city, or the city that, we moved to Charlotte, figuring out where all the, trying a new restaurant, doing a getaway to Asheville, getting over to Wilmington or Myrtle Beach or Charleston, or now that we got our girls, can we find a new playground, the aquarium, the zoo, whatever. Like, to me, that's what I really enjoy doing, with my wife, with my girls, with my family, kind of that exploring, that traveling. I go to a different city, recruiting, and obviously you got a job to do, but like, can I find a cool place to eat, that, I haven't been, so, that, I think that's what I would say.
Awesome. I like that. What person and or event has had the most influence on your life?
It has to be my dad. I think, I was the oldest of three boys. My dad was a teacher, and then he became the mayor of our city and a county legislator. He coached us in baseball growing up. But I think the lessons that he imparted, and, it wasn't always hugs and kisses and peaches and cream, it was, we banged heads a few times along the way, but, I think, to think about how he was when I was growing up, and now to think about how that relationship has progressed and everything that he's done for me, and the knowledge and the wisdom that he's imparted to me, and the times that he's given me space to screw up, and the times that he was tough on me, and then the times that he supported me, and you don't realize it when you're going through all that, but I mean, hopefully I can be half the dad that he was, and, there's a saying I've heard, it's something to the equivalent. If I've been able to accomplish great things, it's because I stood on the shoulders of giants, and my dad was that giant, like he's opened all these, a chance to go to Notre Dame, a chance to do this, a chance to do that. He's been the one that's kind of, given me that opportunity. And, I can't say thank you enough.
Awesome, man. I'm going to answer this question. You kind of touched on a little bit early, but like, what energizes you and brings you excitement?
Well, I think two things now, and I wouldn't know this. Obviously, the competition of the profession that we're in is awesome. Like, it's not like if you do these 6 things, or if you work this 10 hours today, you're going to win. That other guy's in the same boat as you. And your 10 hours might not be as good as his 11 hours, or your 11 hours might not be as good as his 8 hours. Like that consumes you. That's, that kind of whole work smart, not hard. Well, what's the balance? So I think that competition piece where, you decide how many recruiting calls you make, how much film you watch, how much time you put in with your guys extra, whatever, like, and then that plays out on the court, that plays out in a season, that plays out in tournament, postseason. Like, that is, to me, that is awesome. And then, obviously, as someone that was wrapped up in this profession, but then to have a chance to have a family and to have young kids, and, it's bigger than you. It's not just your job, that sort of, that reminder, that piece. And God, can I be a great coach and a great husband and dad? Man, it's challenging as heck, but like, that's probably what, drives me.
Awesome. I like to always end with this question, like, knowing what you know now, what would you tell your younger self or young self to prepare for as a college coach?
Oh, geez. Well, I mean, you have to be prepared to do the worst jobs for no credit, for no money, because you love the game and you love the kids. I think that's what it comes down to. And if that's not why you're doing it, you're setting yourself up for a lot of frustration. And some people have better fortune than others, and maybe they can, get on the mountain at a higher level than others. That's great. No problem to it. But you just got to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Because I've heard there's hundreds and thousands of people for tens and hundreds of jobs, and it's so competitive. So I think that's the one piece. And then, the other people piece, you can't just have tunnel vision and just be so consumed in your deal that you kind of lose touch with the guys you're coaching, the guys you're working with, the guys that are your peers, everyone that's in the, college athletics profession.
Man, that's really good. I love that. Well, look, Kev, man, I want to thank you again for being a guest on Unmasked. And, I really appreciate that. Is it anything that you would leave with the viewers before we go?
No, just, the one, yes. I just think we need to be just every day remind yourself how it's so easy to get frustrated with what we don't have or what's not going well, whether it's with us or with our job, with our family, with our country. I mean, there's just so much negativity and frustration out there. And I would just tell you, like, you go over to Iraq for a year and what we think is a problem over here, they would love to have those problems and they would have no issues with them, and everyone always says to me on Veterans Day, it's awesome. Like, Kevin, thanks for your service. And that's great. I've really been thinking about that. And it's kind of like my new challenge, starting this November when someone says that to me is try to listen to somebody who's different than you, who maybe you disagree with, and try to get along with them a little bit better. That's the best thing you could do for a veteran. Like the team of the United States Army, the United States military, we're from cities, we're from all over the country. We're rural, we're men, we're women, we're different colors, we're different religions, we're different political parties, but we all worked for our country and for each other, and God, I wish our whole country could be like that. And I just think we'd just be a lot happier and we'd enjoy things a lot better.
I totally agree with you, man. And once again, I want to thank you for coming on, and I want to thank the viewers for watching another great show. Stay tuned for the next guest as we get them unmasked. See you next time and stay safe.
Thanks, Al.